Good morning. Hi, Tanya.
Hey, Anne Marie, how are you today?
Good. I'm great. We have a guest with us today, the day
Exciting.
after International Women's Day.
Oh, perfect
And
timing.
yeah, so we have a
Perfect time.
guest, Christine Marchetti, who
Hi.
we know we were first introduced to you, I think, as you were one of our clients
I was.
originally. And Tanya has also had I don't know, I was going to say the pleasure. I think, given the
It was a
circumstance,
pleasure.
it
You
was
were
a
a huge
pleasure
support,
of
Christine.
working with
I
you.
am a fan.
Yeah. And Christine is a family lawyer with
Yes.
Marchetti Law. And so you focus on, maybe you should tell us a little bit about yourself before we
Introduce
get
so we do
the
it wrong.
context.
Sure. I've been a family lawyer. This is my 21st year of practice.
Wow,
Um,
congratulations.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
21 years. Awesome.
Yeah, I worked in Toronto for most of my career at a couple bigger firms and started my own firm in Halton in 2019.
Yeah. You took a
Nice.
left turn
I took a
and went
left
out on your
turn.
own.
I
Yep.
did. I took a left turn and then became a mediator 3 years ago. So I also do family law mediation.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
And I'm a collaboratively trained lawyer, so I litigate,
Nice.
but I also do collaborative law, which is a subset, which I'm happy to
Yes.
to
Talk
chat with
about.
you
That's a
about.
good
Yeah,
thing.
so
Yeah.
people understand what that means, and that's me.
I love
That's
that.
you.
Well, welcome. Yeah, if anyone listened, and now we'll kind of speak broadly to our listeners out there that
Our super fans.
are super fans. There were probably two podcasts ago, maybe three, where we got into a little bit more of a discussion around something we'd referenced, specifically my divorce and separation, and really what, from a midlife standpoint, women are going through, a lot of the conversations I'm having. So, in that podcast, and that's a good one to start with, as people say, we reference Christine often because you have been a huge help just in my process. And no, we're not going to get into the specifics of mine, but just your approach. And I love, as you were introducing yourself, I didn't even know that you went down kind of these other paths. I think that's a really good start because that's sometimes one of the key questions that I get is what process did you go
Hmm.
through? What makes the most sense? But I just want to preface all of this to say is my experience with you. I will say, I say this all the time, and if I reference it wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to apologize. If I reference it wrong, you can correct me. Christine was also at our International Women's Day
Oh, yes.
talk. So she heard
Do not
Professor
apologize.
Maya, do not apologize. I also reference why I enjoyed working with you, a proponent. I love working with women, but I felt we worked collaboratively through the process and your experience brought a lot of background that allowed us to navigate. So we're just hoping this conversation can be like high levels. What are some of the themes that have been going on? I don't know if I accurately said it felt like after COVID, everyone was having the conversation as to whether or not, a marriage was the right thing for them. So maybe we start there. What have you, at a high level, maybe been seeing over the years? And you said you listened to that podcast, so maybe we can start there. And then what are the various options? Because I feel like that is the first start. Where is it mediation? You talked about collaboration, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I was on a family trip 6 months after I had took a left turn and started my own
Hmm.
practice in March of 2020 when, everyone watched. We were like, should we go home? No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Right. No, it's
And then as
fine.
panic slowly sets in, March break is being extended, things, unprecedented. And I remember waiting in line to come back to Canada and just crying because I was so uncertain and fearful for what was going to await me. I remember turning to
Wow.
my husband and saying, I started this practice 6 months ago, and I am now going to face, I don't know what I'm going to face. No one,
Yeah.
none of us did.
Yeah.
And I was really just worried that I had left security and a job I loved to start
Mm.
something on my own. And I was like, do I get 6 months and that's it? What
Yeah.
happens?
Right.
And I'm very grateful that my industry, my profession pivoted really quickly because we had to, because we service families and we service families at their most vulnerable time, and we had to. And so the government did a really good job, our court system did a really good job. And yes, I would say that COVID was extremely busy.
Yeah.
Um, it I would also say that, I mean, I think across industries,
Sure.
COVID brought some like really wonderful things, like the ability to work from
100%.
home,
Yeah.
and it brought like wonderful things, but it also brought like this sense of urgency or instantness that I don't
Yes.
know if you've experienced with the people that you help. So
Hmm.
that was kind of like that's been an interesting shift, right? Like people just think that things happen, really,
Yeah.
really, really quickly. I think we need to be more gracious and kind with each other in terms of timing, but definitely an increase. And I think it happens of twofold. First of all, family law is recession proof.
Yeah.
People stick together when there is money, right?
Yeah.
When the going
Yes.
is good,
Yes.
when you're going on vacation and you got nice dinners and, you're not worried. Um, People stick together because it's like the lubricant, right? It like
Yeah.
makes things easier. It
Literally.
makes the machine, yes, makes the machine move. But when there's not, when there's that is not around as an incentive, we can see, and it becomes a stressor. So it's not around as an incentive. It becomes a stressor in the relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and people separate. So, there can be spikes in separation around financial uncertainty and financial times of crisis. So COVID
Yeah.
brought that for many
Totally makes
people,
sense.
sadly, unfortunately. But also, I think, and this is more like colloquially, and I think my family law colleagues would agree, is that you have people who are now in the same place at the same time all of the time. So
Yes.
those breaks that you had to go to work or to play golf or to play euchre or to go to book club or whatever the case may be that brought you apart, gave you those moments of reprieve, also gave you that like fodder for conversation between the two of you, is gone. And I
Yeah.
think some people looked at each other and was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
100%.
What am I doing here? And then you have the stressors of like if you were schooling young children or what have
Yes.
Yes.
you. I
So it
think all
highlights the cracks. It highlights the
highlight
cracks.
it's like a
Yeah.
magnifying glass.
Yes.
And yeah, and definitely I think there was a real surge for us. We were very busy.
So I have a
Yes.
question
Well,
because
that's
you made
good.
a really good point, and I think that was when Tanya referenced
Hmm.
after COVID. I think you were meaning not just what the world was going through, but exactly what you just said. People suddenly turned inwards, and maybe
Yeah.
their frustrations, there was no outlet for those frustrations. So I have a question because a lot of what we talk about here is midlife, and you
Hmm.
hear, and we talk a lot about women and what we're going through. I wonder if the COVID like situation. So menopause and change of life.
Hmm.
And when you say, when the going is good, people stay. When the going is not good, people consider alternatives. I feel like this can be a very difficult transition in women's lives, especially if they're not getting the help that they need or they're after, 1 year or 20 years realize the partnership is not equal or they feel unseen or unheard or whatever. But that is another magnifying glass, just like COVID, this change of life or transition, like your kids leave and suddenly,
Yeah.
holy
Yeah.
smokes. So I feel like that's in our circles. Tanya and I have lost count now with the number of friends we're also
Hmm.
sending to you.
Yes.
And
Thank
or
you.
we're
Speak to
like, or
Christine.
we're like, go at least check out Christine,
Yeah.
because you have a very nice approach to it. Because I would imagine people sometimes just need to get it out of their head and talk to somebody else. That doesn't mean they follow through necessarily. But anyway, so do you see a theme with women in this kind of 45 to 55,
Yeah.
like this gray divorce theme?
Well, I would agree with you. We are not
Hmm.
quite gray
No,
divorce
Right?
I
yet.
know,
No.
I know, but according to the,
But
the
yeah, I know.
definition, we
Whatever. Let's
are. We
ignore
don't
that.
have to
But
be gray.
we don't have to be gray. I wrote a paper on gray divorce.
Oh, really?
I
Oh,
found gray divorce fascinating.
love
I
this.
have my own theories on
What
gray
are they?
divorce. I think obviously people are living longer. I think you identified this when you were
Yes.
talking. People
Yeah.
are living longer. And so you're looking at the future and you're like, am I really going to tolerate
Mhm.
20, 30, 25, 40, whatever the case may be, more years that are unsatisfactory or unsatisfying or aren't giving me what I need and want? Or am I going to make a change and choose happiness, choose growth,
Yeah.
choose something different for myself? I think and to model, if you have children still in the household, right? People have children later, model to children healthy relationships,
Yes.
health, like a sense of, your own self-worth and what you
Yes.
deserve. And are you going to model to your children how, like, happiness is, it's not something that happens to you, right? It
That's
is a
right.
journey. You move towards growth and something different. And along the way that's where the happiness is. So I think particularly perimenopause, menopause, what have
Yeah.
you, like, I don't know if we're allowed to swear here. I'm not going to.
Oh, I've already, we are.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
fine.
not going to, but I think for women, there's no more like bull shit that
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
Yes.
prepared to put up with.
Yes. Yeah.
I agree.
We have such little patience as it is. And I think, yeah, I think a lot of women, and also I think this generation is much more therapy positive,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? And I'm not saying everyone who goes to therapy is going to leave their spouse,
Yeah.
but usually people are seeking out therapy because there is something like what's
There's a gap.
there's like, yeah, like I don't
Yes.
feel right and I don't know why, so I'm going to talk to someone about it. And sometimes it's because your job, it's not the right job, or sometimes it's because you're struggling with your children, but sometimes it's because the relationship you're in is problematic. And then you have options. You can turn to your spouse and say, hey, do you want to go on this journey with me? I think maybe we can do this therapy thing together. And I believe if you're going to do it together, you
Yeah.
need three therapists. Very unpopular view, but each of you need your
Oh,
own therapist. And
And
then
then have a couple one.
you need to have a couple, because you need to do the work on
yes.
your own. You can't do the
Yes.
work. It can't
Agreed.
be in a
Yes.
silo that you do the work when you see your therapist. You need to do
Yes.
your own personal work.
I
And it needs to be
agree.
in a place where, like, you're not worried that the not that they can, but that the therapist is going to
Yeah.
tattletale, right? Like, you need to do your own growth in your own therapy. And I
Yeah.
think people who are they're not taking bull anymore. They're at a point in their life where they're looking at what the future holds for them. They're looking at what they want their legacy to be. What they're the
Yes.
Yes.
last,
The
what they're
legacy.
right. And then they're making choices. And I, people are no longer prepared to tolerate things. I think
Yeah.
particularly menopausal and perimenopausal women,
Mm.
we're not prepared to tolerate poor health and health
Mm.
care anymore. We're not prepared to tolerate substandard working conditions in our jobs. We are not prepared to tolerate a life that isn't full and rich. And that
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes means taking a look at your primary relationship and does it work? And I think, the whole like mental load, which I know gets
Yes.
Yeah.
thrown
Yes.
around
But
quite
it's
frequently,
very
but it's
true.
so freaking accurate,
Yes.
particularly in heteronormative
Yeah.
relationships,
Yes.
where like mom is like the CEO of the household. And notwithstanding if she has a job and notwithstanding what kind of job she has, and she's like, why do I have two full-time jobs when my spouse doesn't?
Yeah.
Right? And they're just not satisfied to put up with it anymore. And so they make changes.
Yeah.
And in terms of gray divorce, what I think, when I say I have lots of thoughts and theories,
Hmm.
very frequently in a heteronormative relationship where the woman was the CEO of the household, part of what she's also doing is managing the social calendar for both
Yes.
parties.
Yes. And that's such
And
a
then
bad joke when people joke about it. I'm like, why are we joking about
no,
this?
it's
It's not
sad.
funny
It's
at
not
all.
funny
Oh, talk to my
because
wife. Really?
yeah, because
Really?
then
It's not
yeah,
funny.
it's not funny. But men then I think men are terribly lonely after the
Mm.
divorce
100%.
because
Oh, because she managed all of
she
it and her
managed that
friends.
for him.
Yeah.
That's an interesting
Yeah, I
point.
Yeah,
agree.
I think we need to be really mindful of mental health issues that arise in
Mhm.
gray divorce.
There are stats too to support the that mental health challenge with men post-divorce.
Hmm.
There are. I don't know. I'll always reference, I'm sure there's a stat out there, but I've read it. But that's a very real thing as well. And
So,
I think that's for
hmm.
that reason, right? The loneliness is real.
So the men
Um,
didn't foster the relationships and then they end up without their people? Is that that's the
it's
Yeah, or
hypothesis?
many reasons. Yeah.
yeah,
But that would
Hmm.
be one,
that would be one.
100%.
That would be one, right? I mean, I really think I think healthy romantic relationships, marriage relationships, common law relationships
Hmm.
involve both parties having rich and full lives that are outside of one another.
Yes. Yeah.
Individually, and then one and one
Yes.
equals two.
Yes.
Like
It's
Yeah.
not all
it's
about the couple or the
not just a
family. It
one.
Yeah.
has to be about, and I feel like, okay, so then tying that into, again, our own personal observations is again, at this stage of life, that's why all of our friends are playing mahjong and pickleball, and
Yeah.
we're reinvesting in our own friendships, the friendships that maybe came along through children or neighbors or old friends, but you're reinvesting. That's an interesting point. Is he also doing that? Who knows?
Yeah, not always.
And that's the same, it's the same way as you're saying having your own therapist and making sure you want to know
I
what
love that.
you want out of your own life. Because I also think that is such a fair and smart way to approach it. Because if you go to the couple counseling first and one of you have done all this introspective thinking and figuring out and the other one it hasn't, then it's unbalanced.
Mhm.
But if you haven't done any of that thinking at all,
You're
it's
not
like
bringing much to the table.
you're making decisions by committee versus
Yeah,
Yeah.
coming with your own point of view and then coming together.
I mean, listen, I'm not like it's a very privileged approach,
of
Yeah.
right? Because
course.
like who can afford three
Yes.
therapists,
Yes.
100%.
But
right?
a
I mean,
divorce is not inexpensive. So I
right?
mean, it's
But it's cheaper than divorce. And
yeah.
also, like utilize your benefits or like
Yes.
even if it's like
Yeah, employment
you have like
assistance or
a
whatever.
something, you just explore options to do some of that homework on your own if you're in a situation where there aren't a whole lot of extra
Hmm.
resources to have three therapists. I get it. It's a
So
lot.
I'm so I'm reminded why you and I worked so well together because we're very aligned on a lot of things, and I think we both came to the table with it. Our just approach worked, and I just think that's so important for people who, if you go down this path and you decide to partner with someone who's going to help you through one of the major decisions of your life, and the people will understand it in listening to you, Christine, that you need someone who has the same point of view as you, right? Who can help you through it, but also challenge you. But I agree with that wholeheartedly. I just think it doesn't happen. I have so many friends who are going into the now couples counseling and none of that work. And to your point, it can happen in different. I've always said that. Like for me, it started with books and podcasts
Hmm.
through to coach through to and then I'm ready. So I think that's a really great takeaway for people as a validation of a theme that Anne Marie and I have talked about, but it's great to hear your point of view. So people come to you now and they'll have, oh, well, we always do it. Call Christine, at least have an initial conversation. And there's some themes. I'm assuming maybe this theme around this idea of therapy might come up because they're telling you maybe some of the things they go walk through, but maybe this is a good transition into the types of paths people can take. And
Yeah.
kind of your growth within your business. Maybe you can tie that in and give us a window as to how things, because for me, it's been a few years, so I'm sure things have changed too.
And your path might not be the path that everyone takes.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, First, as like a divorce lawyer, we have to talk to people about like, are you sure you want to separate? Have you
Yes.
tried therapy? Have you tried counseling? That's part of what the conversation needs to be when someone decides that they wish to retain counsel. But when I do an initial consultation, first of all, I don't give specific legal advice at a consultation because I don't know all of the facts. I am hearing one side of the story. I have no documentation. And so what I do is do you have kids? Do you have property? Do you work? Do you have a pension? I sort of gather all of those facts. And then the general information that I provide to people at an initial consultation is tailored to those set of facts, right? Because if you don't
Makes
have
sense.
kids, I'm not going to talk to you about parenting. That's a waste of your time and money. But if you do have kids, I'm going to tailor the general information I provide to you about children and what ages and stages they're at. Do they have special needs? That kind of thing, right? Are they close to university age? Do we need to talk about financing
Yeah.
university? That kind of stuff. So I always do general legal information, and then I always, always, always cover process.
Mm.
Because I say to people, the second biggest choice you make after you decide to separate is how you will separate. People think you have to run off to court. You don't. Particularly if you have a level of cooperation between the two of you, you have younger children. Court is very expensive. You are at the mercy of the scheduling of the court. Just because you are ready to go to court doesn't mean the court is ready for you, because dates are booked in some instances 4,
Yeah.
5, 6, 7, 8 months down the road. Um, so court is not always necessary. Court is or can be necessary in certain situations. If someone is doing something that they ought not to be doing and doesn't have any care about what the right thing to do, like they're taking money out of a joint account or running up a line of credit or threatening to abduct children, um, yeah, you probably need to court because you need a judge to stop that. You need a court order. If there is coercive control, domestic violence, power
Right.
imbalance, you may need to consider court because the person on the other side may only respond to that level of authority. So court might be your only option. But if court is not the only option, explore other options, and I do that, and I talk about process. So you can just negotiate. If you each have
Yeah.
counsel, you can have a negotiation. Sometimes that involves what we call, lawyers call, four-way meetings, so both lawyers, both parties, we have an open, honest dialogue, and we try to resolve the issues, and then typically a separation agreement is sort of the final product before the divorce.
Is
That's
that the
one
most
option.
common? That sounds like it would be the most
I
common,
would say
assuming
that's probably the most common, is
assuming
you
people
just,
were
yeah,
were mature enough to have
yeah,
those conversations.
yeah. You just work with the lawyer and you do the financial disclosure. And financial disclosure is really, really imperative and important. A lot of people want to sidestep that. It's a bad idea.
Right.
So once you have the disclosure and you have a conversation and you're exchanging parenting plans, what have you, then yeah, you can have a negotiation. Sometimes the negotiation stalls on one or more than one issue, in which case explore mediation or
Yeah.
mediation arbitration. Mediation is dialogue. It's neutral facilitating of a resolution.
Mm.
So the mediator is a neutral facilitator. They are not telling you what to do. They are working with you to craft a resolution that's uniquely yours. So the parties are responsible for the resolution, but they are typically more senior, family counsel in a lot of instances, and you can either meet all in on across the table from one another if there's high levels of cooperation, there's not like a restraining order, that kind of thing, and it's not going to the conversation's not going to deteriorate,
Mm.
and you talk issue by issue by issue by issue, and you craft an agreement through a mediation process. Sometimes that takes one session, sometimes that takes multiple sessions, but it's a cooperative, collaborative process.
So you could
So
do
I
mediation
had a
in lieu of negotiation, or if you have an issue from negotiation, then you take it to mediation.
Yeah, it's kind of like
okay. That was gonna be
yeah, it's not, they're not like mutually exclusive. You can do negotiation and then mediate, or you can just go straight to mediation, or you can just do negotiation, or you can start with negotiation and then mediate certain issues, or even all of
okay.
the issues if there's an
Mm.
impasse. Okay,
What
they're
is
really,
arbitration? You said that. What does that mean?
yeah, arbitration is a private process that gives you a result. So in a mediation process, the mediator is not deciding for you, but in an
Mm.
arbitration process, it's like a private trial essentially. So
Oh, it's like
you're
they're
paying for
Oh,
the,
judging, they're making the decision.
they're making the decision. You get
Ah,
an award, you don't get an order, but they're making a decision for you, and that is binding, right? You're bound
interesting.
by the arbitration award, okay?
Okay.
And it's private. Um, I'm a collaboratively trained lawyer. A lot of lawyers are collaborative in their approach, or they're cooperative in their approach. But if you're actually going to do collaborative law, I just did air quotes for people who are
yeah.
Hmm.
listening. If
Well
you're,
done.
yeah, if you're going to do collaborative law, you need, people are usually trained. There's something called a participation agreement that's signed between the parties, and it's like a contract that you are going to work together to resolve your issues outside of litigation. You're not going to start litigation. You're not going to threaten starting litigation. And
Mm.
if collaborative law breaks down, you are not permitted to take the lawyer because this is where we get the buy-in. You're not permitted to take the lawyer you're working with to the litigation. You need to switch lawyers. So that kind of like
Mm.
binds you to the process because you don't want to switch lawyers, right?
No.
Collaborative law is an all cards on the table type approach. It's typically a series of meetings. We discuss issue by issue. After each meeting, if there's resolution, there's a report generated. It's called a progress note that talks about the progress reached in that session.
Hmm.
And it's an interest-based approach, not a rights-based approach.
Mm.
Rights-based approaches
Interesting.
are typically mediation, arbitration, litigation, where it's like, these are my legal rights. And an interest-based approach is a little bit different. We don't forget the law. The law is always the foundation,
Sure.
but we're looking at meeting the interests of the parties and the family. And then once all of the issues are discussed and resolved, the lawyers go back and they craft a resolution, which is typically a separation agreement, and they make a joint
Hmm.
recommendation to their clients. This is what we think the separation agreement ought to look like based on the decisions that we've made throughout this process.
So
So
if you're
you
a
don't
collaborative
represent,
lawyer, yeah,
we both
that
have
we're
questions.
asking the
I was
same
like,
thing.
do you don't represent both? You each still
You
have, or
each
do
have
you represent,
lawyers.
you
Yeah,
Yeah,
each
you
have
each have
lawyers?
lawyers.
Okay.
And then in the collaborative process, although
same question.
you can have these professionals in every sort of every avenue that you choose. But collaborative law is wonderful because you can also have a financial professional, they're like called a financial neutral, or a
Yes.
family professional, they're called a family neutral. And these are people who are either skilled in family dynamic to create a parenting plan or the financial aspect of things. So to help you with your financial, they typically don't draft a financial statement. They create a net family property statement that's going to
Mm.
help determine who owes whom what property wise. They help with support calculations, but they're kind of experts in their field and those people work for both parties. They're neutral in their evaluation and in their assistance. But you can have family professionals and family or financial professionals in any avenue that you choose. They're just very common in
Hmm.
the collaborative process.
Interesting.
And I would say that if you're going to do a collaborative process and you have a gray divorce, notwithstanding that your children are no longer, subject to a parenting schedule because they're maybe in their 30s,
Yeah.
if you're untangling a marriage that's 35, 40, 45 years in, I'd want a family professional helping me unwind that dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've used family professionals in situations where it's a gray divorce because they have really helped facilitate and moderate those discussions, soften the edges of some of those challenging
Yes.
conversations.
When you think, so two questions. You say gray
Yeah.
divorce and you're saying 35, 40 years. We were using the term in kind of like age, I think it was age 50 and above. So really,
Sure.
gray divorce could still be like 25 years or whatever, even though we don't think of ourselves as senior citizens. We're not senior citizens.
Yeah.
But like, I think we were using like your divorce, Tanya, as an example of gray divorce. I just
Yeah.
wanted to
But I
make sure that
think
was
maybe gray
accurate.
divorce might skew a bit
Oh, a little
higher.
bit older, like kids are
Yeah.
completely out of the house. So another thing you said, I think this is really interesting because we've talked about, like you referenced, sadly when it ends, which obviously any ending of a long-term relationship is sad. But if there's like an uncoupling and a recognition that this no longer serves either one of us, and we're grateful for the time we had together,
Hmm.
Yeah.
particularly if there's like a maturity, it sounds like that collaborative approach, although sad, but kind of helping one another move to the next step in a mutually satisfying way. Like that sounds like the most pleasant of an unpleasant circumstance.
Yeah,
I haven't been through it, so I don't know, but it
I would
sounds like
More
not as
pleasant.
horrible as
I
some
would
stories you
yeah,
hear.
I would say that I think collaborative law can be wonderful for parties who are capable of it.
Hmm.
Mm,
Not everyone's going to be capable of a collaborative
Yeah.
process.
mm.
And so because if you have someone who, I can't tell you, like, I'm a family lawyer, like, literally every single one of my clients tells me that their partner's a narcissist. And I was like, who diagnosed them? My therapist. Have they ever met them? No, that's not a
Oh my
diagnosis.
gosh.
Um, but we hear that a lot. But like, there are
Makes me
people
Oh,
who
it's
laugh.
the
genuinely,
tendencies. They have
yeah,
tendencies for sure.
yeah. So like sometimes people who have like in a personality disorder, it might be challenging to be in a collaborative process. If there's abuse, it might be challenging.
Of course. And emotion, just deep
Yeah,
emotion in its
yeah,
most basic sense
yeah.
is tough,
And
It's
I
right?
would
really,
imagine
really
even if
hard.
you both want it, I can imagine it would still be
Still be hard.
brutally hard because you're unpacking years
Years,
Like, are
years.
you
of
seeing that grow more in your business? Like, if you look at, are you seeing a trend? Like, as
I have
maybe a
seen
younger generation's a little bit more open?
I've done both. I've done collaborative law and mediation with gray divorce. I've done it with
Okay.
younger families. I think it
Hmm.
all depends. There's no age for your evolution, right? Like,
No, fair.
there are people who
that's
are
a quote.
70 and aren't, yeah, they're not really evolved, and there's people who are 35 and they're like super evolved and progressive
Sure.
in their thinking. Um, you said something in the podcast, Tanya. You said
Mhm.
that when people were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," you were like, "Hey, I'm not. I had
Yes.
a successful marriage." And
Yes, that's what I meant too. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
tell clients that all the time. I tell my friends that all the
Yes.
time. I
Yay,
think,
Christine. Because
yeah,
we need more people who are encouraging that narrative because it's true.
it's so true. What do you mean? You
Yeah.
had 15, 20, 25 years of you know, building a family, sometimes, creating children if you chose to have children, companionship, love, respect, financial growth. And I think it's okay to say that, right? Like if
Yeah.
you ended up better financially
Yes.
because you were working together as a financial
The team.
team,
Yeah.
all of these things are success. We need to, I always say to people, success does not mean forever, right?
Yes. That's a
Suc
quote.
yeah, success
That's a
can
quote.
be like
Yeah.
20 years, 25 years, 15 years, 10 years. I think we have to change the way we view success. Success can be saying, finally, you know what? I'm not prepared to be abused anymore. I'm not prepared to be emotionally ignored anymore. I'm not prepared to like be doing all of the emotional and psychological labor in connection to our children or this relationship anymore. And understanding that and saying, I choose something different, that's success. I hate the term failed
Okay.
marriage. I hate it.
Yeah.
It's
Same.
ugly.
It was
Let's get rid of it.
I love that, and I'm that's going to be my next tattoo or something because I agree with you. I just think that was such the biggest um that was the every question, every approach, every conversation was along that theme, and I just always looked at it so much so differently. And I think it's more and more. That's why I think the term uncoupling becomes a little bit more of a word because it feels less negative, if you will.
Hmm.
It's just natural that that can happen. And I like what you said about success. It can be success is no longer the 50 or 60
Yeah.
years. It just can't be.
Maybe a failed marriage is actually a marriage that stays together, but for the wrong
Well,
reasons.
there you go. You have a lot of those
Yeah.
stories as well.
Right? Like
Yeah.
so
That's so
or
true.
maybe a successful marriage is that they stay together but they choose their own
Hmm.
lives. Like it's
Hmm.
but they financially and they
Yeah.
live together. Like yeah, like nobody knows what goes on in anyone's house. You have
No.
no idea what
And everyone's tolerance
people
is different,
accept. Yeah.
Yeah.
circumstances are different. So, Christine, if you, and that then leads me to, again, I love everything you're saying about you know, what are some of the challenges maybe, or the things that you maybe leave people with? You said you ask a series of questions, you go through it, but that's a lot of the questions I feel you must get it so much if you introduce yourself as a family lawyer, or a divorce lawyer, etc., where people look to you as, what should I do? Right? Which I know you would never tell them necessarily what to do. But what may be some key considerations that you
Because
find you're often
they're
you
dabbling with the idea.
yeah,
Yeah,
that you
sure.
often bring up. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but that kind of idea.
Yeah. I would
Hmm.
say so a few things. If you have I sometimes I hear from people, friends or consults or what have you, I'm planning, I'll leave when the kids are whatever,
Yes.
done high school, whatever.
Yes.
So the social science research tells us that children are impacted by conflict.
Hmm.
Conflict. is sometimes yelling at each other. Sometimes, very unfortunately, conflict is, people putting
Silence.
hands on each other. But yes,
Mhm.
conflict is silence.
Silence. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to
And
jump in.
I know, absolutely. So the parents who give each other the silent treatment, because that is conflict. It is like so many messages, right? About respect and courtesy and kindness and love when there is silence. So I say you can have two households where the parents, they don't live together anymore. And we talk about children have one life and they live it in two houses. And they can live that one life in two houses where there are parents who are not in conflict, but they don't live together anymore. And those children are going to be okay. So
Yes.
if there is conflict in your house, whatever that conflict looks like, and you're sticking around, I did air quotes again, to for the sake of your kids, don't, because you are actually harming them. Okay.
Yes.
So I tell people that. And then there's like practical considerations. Banks hold on to records for 7 years typically. Okay. So if you came into the relationship with something of significance, except for a matrimonial home that remains a matrimonial home on the date of separation, because the law recognizes or looks at the matrimonial home that remains the matrimonial home on date of separation differently. I'm not going to necessarily get into that. But if you come in with like a business or an RRSP or a significant investment, if you're not yet married and you're going to get married, take a little screenshot on the day of your wedding and save that in a safe or a folder or what have you, because the law recognizes deductions when we are dividing that family property. So keep a record of that. If you are thinking of separating and maybe you're at 6 years of marriage, go to the bank and say, hey, can I have the statements from the date that I got from this date, which is the date I got
Mm.
married? And if you're like 14 years in, take a look through your records. Can you gather? Do you have a bank statement? I always tell the story. I had a client who said she had been married for 45 years and she
Mhm.
said, I know I had 5 grand when I got married. And I looked at her and I said, there's no way you can prove that. And the next time I saw her, she came in with the shoebox and
She
she
had
had
it.
every single passbook for 45 years, back when
Wow.
they had passbooks. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember a good passbook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
I
she
love
she could
those.
prove that she had a date of marriage deduction of exactly $5,000 on the date that she got married. So I would say
Does
like
that like equate to today's value?
no, it's
Okay.
fixed in
But
time.
but
It's
it's
fixed in
just
time.
that's her that
Yeah,
was but she knew she had that.
yeah.
She
And
wanted
also
that
like
5,000.
she
Yeah.
wanted that 5,000 deduction and she got it. So,
I love that.
the information from when you got married, both debts are important too, especially if
Yeah.
people have student debts and your spouse will remember you had student debt. So
Yeah.
just if you can gather that information, if it's like if separation and divorce is an inkling to you, that would be really helpful. That's good advice. Um, Conflict for children. I am not, I'm a, I maybe I don't think people should strategize forever in secret. I
Yeah.
especially if you have
Mm.
respect and love
Yes.
for the person on
Yes.
the other side. I think if you are
Yes.
starting to think about it and it is a serious consideration, once you have decided that that is the end
Hmm.
for you and you're not interested in therapy or what have you, I think you need to start communicating
Yeah.
that. I think otherwise you end up in situations where one person has processed and they're like done. And then the other person's like, what? And there's all
Yes.
this catch up, and you
Mm.
deal with that catch up, the hurt, the frustration, the overwhelm, the sense of betrayal,
Yeah.
and it can really impede progress in the separation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sure, gather your date of marriage deductions and your debts that you had. Keep in mind that conflict is really harmful to children. Um, but I don't know what else you do to prepare except gather your financial
Yes. That's usually what
documentation,
I've
Yeah.
said too. That's really
become,
it.
yeah, become aware. If you're like the person who doesn't know about the finances, make yourself aware of the
It's
finances
a
so
good
that you're
point.
not,
Yeah.
That was a big point. I think we
yeah,
talked a little bit about it because I find that is a lot of the conversations I'll have with my friends, right? That's one of my first questions. That was a benefit from my standpoint. I knew where everything was. So
exactly.
I knew how much easier it was, A, to negotiate fairly and to know the situation. But I think for women, and I like to think maybe as age demographic moves, maybe younger women will be more into their finances, but I have a lot of friends who aren't sure where everything
Mm.
is, and that can be scary. You need to be very aware. Now, it all comes to fruition, right, Christine? Like at the end of the day, everything is
Yeah.
divulged. Um, but my question was going to be, I think the biggest challenge too is if you're not as aware of your current finances, it's hard for you to imagine what is required post divorce.
As an
You were
individual.
one as an individual. You were very, that was one thing I really valued from you, a lot of things, but you were very clear to say, Tanya, you're underestimating X. Tanya, like, don't, like, I've been here before. I know of people who've come back to me, and I don't want that for you. So you need to really kind of consider that. I could imagine that that's a big part of the conversation. People don't really get how much it is now to live on your own,
Yeah, there
regardless of your child or spousal support.
yeah, a few things. I mean, like if you're looking to maybe keep a home, and
Yes.
if it's a jointly owned property, no one is obligated to sell to you, right? There's the Partition and Sales Act that comes into play. So, but if
Mm,
your spouse is prepared to sell to sell their interest to you, do some, like do a mortgage calculator online, but
yeah,
really, speak to a broker. Now, listen, in this day and age, a bank, a tier one lender is they're like it's like chicken and egg. They always want to see a
sure.
separation agreement, and you're like, I'm nowhere near a separation agreement. We're still in the process of negotiating. But if you have a good relationship with your bank, like an idea of what you might qualify for,
Yeah.
that would be really helpful. There are financial professionals both at the bank and also, neutral family professionals that we use in the collaborative
Mm,
realm who will be able to like sit with you for like a fee and be like, okay, this is the kind of what your budget looks like moving forward. Really important if you are a gray divorce kind of person and you're already both retired, right? Like, oh my
sure.
gosh, this pool of money that we had counted on together
Yes.
is now going to be divided in two. So what does that look like for me with my, old age security and my CPP benefits, et cetera, et cetera? So
Mm,
inform yourself financially about what things look like. And I will also say that
That's a huge thing.
sometimes,
I didn't
yeah,
even never
huge.
thought about that. I would have, yeah, because we're
Yeah.
not at retirement age, but we're not that far
we're
from
not quite
it.
the gray.
And you think of so many of our friends. Yeah, wow. I never even thought about that for anyone.
And sometimes
Sorry.
the person who is leaving the relationship, whether or not there has been infidelity, because that is sort of another layer of guilt for a lot of people, although
Hmm.
like I don't judge, right?
Sure.
Things happen, life is long, marriages are complicated. Um, but sometimes the person who's chosen to leave, or maybe someone has done something that they're not necessarily really happy that they've done, they're like I want to make the other person happy. I want to try to
Sure.
fix this somehow. And the way that they think they can do it is by like leaving money on the table or being more generous. And what I would say to that is, number one, you need to expect that that will fix nothing, that the person on the
Hmm.
other side is still like, no, I still hate you. You ruined my life. I'm very angry with you. Thanks for the money, but I still don't like you.
Yeah.
That could happen. It could have no effect.
Yeah.
And second is that y- will you be okay with that in 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the future that you've done that? You've either left money behind or you've been extra generous. And also, it didn't solve the problem that you were hoping to solve with that act of generosity. So just be aware of that because, and
It's a good point.
I do that a lot with people. I like, reality test.
Yeah, you do.
I try to reality test like, okay, that's a really nice thing, but are you going to
Hmm.
be okay with that
Yeah.
in the future? That
Yeah,
choice.
and I think that's a very important just for anyone to and again, it's not like I've worked with several lawyers in my past. I was very lucky that I found you. We had worked with you, etc. So I consider myself very lucky. Because you need someone who is reminding you of those important things. Because you're right, even though I was, leading the charge on all aspects, and there were moments where I need you to remind me of the reality. So that is really important for anyone who's, thinking about that. You have your friends in your life who can be like, it's okay, it'll be fine. But you need someone at this point who's going to tell you the truth, whether you like to hear it or not. And I think that was a really important aspect of value you brought. I'm just conscious of time, and I
I have a
know that you're
question.
busy. Yeah, I was
Um,
like, question, and
Okay,
then anything that maybe Christine had in her mind she wanted to share to give her an
sure.
opportunity to do that.
So
Okay.
I have a question for all of our friends that have gone through a separation and now they're restarting their new lives. And maybe they're in a new relationship or like a common law
Mm,
situation. So what are the steps or the watch outs for them? Because like you've gone through it, you've separated, and then often
they're
people,
back in.
you're kind of back in it, but maybe in a slightly different way. Like how can they
Yeah.
protect themselves?
So the best way to protect yourself in a situation where you're perhaps you've separated later in life, you've already divided your property with your
Hmm.
former spouse, and now you have a little nest egg, or you bought yourself a home, or whatever the case may be, you may not want to divide that in half again. So,
That's what I mean.
right?
Yeah.
So the best protection is a an agreement, a contract. We call them either cohabitation agreements or marriage contracts. But people, because we watch American television, will know them as a
Prenup.
prenup.
Okay.
We don't call them prenups. We call them marriage
Oh,
contracts or
see, I didn't know
cohabitation
that.
agreements. But get speak to someone, and it's not going to cost $3, okay? Because people are they go to a lawyer and they're like, I would like a cohabitation agreement or a marriage contract, and I would like to pay $3 for that, please. I'm protecting $1 million worth of assets, and I want to pay $3 to do that. It's an insurance policy, so you're going to have
Yeah.
to pay
Hey.
to
Yeah.
make sure that it is done properly, that you have all of your financial disclosure.
Mhm.
Use a lawyer who does family law. Don't spend $3. I'm sorry, no one wants to hear that, but that is the best insurance policy.
Yeah.
And then the second thing to be aware of, particularly if you have children and you're going to repartner, you want to make sure you probably that your legacy, your financial legacy with your
It's
children
protected.
is protected. So speak to a wills and estates lawyer, speak to a family
Yeah.
lawyer about that as well. And then, understand if don't just go to a real estate lawyer because real estate lawyers practice real estate. They don't do wills, and sometimes they do wills as well, but very few real estate lawyers also do family law. But you may have to speak to three different lawyers, I'm sorry, to get a
Hmm.
fulsome and comprehensive protection for what you are trying to do. And then also be aware that if you are going to marry again, like you're going to remarry, take those snapshots in time of
Yeah.
what you owned, what you owed, on date of marriage, because that is going to
Smart.
help you, and have conversations with your spouse, because or your future spouse, because right now you're in the honeymoon phase, you love each other, it's wonderful. And I say for people, particularly people who are going to get married again or going to live with someone, and they're like, oh, I don't want to have this conversation, it's so terrible, I love them, they're going to think I'm money hungry, or that I'm trying to protect. And well, no, the way to have that conversation is, I love you so much now that I want to ensure that in the very unlikely event that something goes south, we have worked things out now in this moment of happiness and
Yeah.
respect and kindness, so that we aren't fighting. I love you so much now. I never want to fight with you. I certainly don't want to
Hmm.
fight with you about money later on down the road. And that's sometimes an entry into a really difficult conversation.
Yeah, that's well said. Well said. So that I didn't know some of that. Also, is your favorite number three because your three is of everything. Three therapists, three lawyers, Christine. Do
Well,
everything in threes.
there's
No,
Lucky
magic.
I'm
There's
just,
number.
magic in
it's a
three,
lucky
even in
number.
Yeah.
decorating. Yeah,
I
Yeah.
agree with you. No, I was just like, oh, I love that. It's easy to
yeah,
remember.
yeah.
But I agree. I never even considered that you would, but that makes sense as an
Yeah.
insurance policy. Absolutely, you need to do that. You don't want to get
Well,
caught
and
again.
especially if people are leaving because they didn't feel that their life was full,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's what we're hearing within our
Mhm.
world.
Hmm.
And then they seek out a way to make that full. A new relationship is very likely in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
100%.
you've just been through whether that was a comfortable uncoupling or a terrible circle. You don't want to
You
have
don't
that
want to get
happen
into the same
again.
thing. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
in the same way
Gosh.
you're making changes in your behavior, likely, you're going to make changes in this way. So that was a really good
Yeah,
answer.
that
Yeah.
was a good answer. Is there anything before we close it off, Christine? First of all, thank you so much. This
You're welcome.
was educational and I just remember why. I very much enjoyed working with you. Well, I mean, the situation wasn't
I
great,
get it.
but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure
Ditto.
people say
Yeah,
that.
I
Ditto,
get it.
thanks.
But you want to
Um,
feel like there's trust and there's like
yeah,
you're
I
very
think
real and very logical,
practicality.
but yeah, but
Yeah,
also kind. Like I think you can hear the collaborativeness in like your
yes,
your
the way you do
baseline is
it
kindness. You want to help someone. You don't
for
want to just
sure.
get something,
And the
Like
lack of
you're trying
judgment,
to
I
help.
think,
You're
is
trying to
important
help.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there anything you want to close off that you wanted to like? I want to say this, or I hear this
Yeah.
often.
Two things.
Yes,
The
great.
first is I can't tell you how many times someone will come to me and say, I want a shark. I want a pit bull. I'm not an animal. I'm a person. And
It's like, what do you
those are,
mean?
I want
Now
a
I get it.
shark. I want a
Yeah.
shark.
They want someone
Um,
to go get something from that other person
and
and
yeah,
attack.
attack. And listen, that approach very seldom gets you the results that you want. You don't trap what is it? You don't trap flies with vinegar, you trap flies with
With
honey,
honey.
whatever that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
bees with honey.
Yeah. It's
Like
the kind approach. You're helping.
yeah, I mean, you need to be smart. You should be strategic. You should be smart. You should be informed. You should be educated. You should want a lawyer who is a zealous advocate, who's got your back, who's going to tell you when you're wrong, when you're right, what to fight for, what to give up, what's important, what's not important. But the like aggressive approach, whether I'm telling you in court, it does not really go over the way people think it's going to go over. Judges don't typically like it. And it doesn't get you in and out as quickly as a family lawyer would like you to get in and out. You want someone who is smart, practical, reasonable, and is going to work cooperatively and collaboratively with the other lawyer. That is going to get you the best result. Okay, number
Good for
one.
you.
And number two, if you find yourself in this situation, I tell people this all the time, and some clients listen and some don't. It's really hard, but try to give your spouse make generous assumptions about their motivation and their actions, right? So instead of being like, I know they are doing this because, and assigning like the most negative assumption and motivation to them, understand that they are just as scared,
Yeah.
worried, fearful, uncertain, that they love your children as much as you do, and assign to them rather, try, like exercise the muscle, try to assign to them positive positive motivation,
Yeah.
positive intentions, that they are coming from a place of good as well. Now, it's not always possible, and sometimes people are not coming from a place of good, but most of us are. And so when you start to view the other person not as your adversary, but as someone who is going through the same trauma, because divorce and separation is
Yeah.
trauma,
Yeah.
then sometimes we just like see it from their perspective and we can
Yeah.
actually get past the impasse.
Yeah. Those are two very, very good points.
Yeah.
Very good points.
Because you started
Really.
out as a partner with them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
feel like maybe people would might forget that.
Yeah.
people forget it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Emotion's a crazy thing. Thank you,
Wait, I
You're
Christine.
have one more
welcome.
quick question. What are
Oh,
the stats? What are the stats? Like, I feel like we
for
grew
what?
up at a time of
Oh, for like
50% of divorces split. Is it
it's
still that
not,
high?
it's no, it was never that high in Canada. Our stats are always
Oh,
have always been lower. To tell you the truth, I don't know what it is, but it's not 50%.
I
And
okay.
feel
in
like in
Canada
my
it hasn't
world, it's
been.
never been 50%. But I
No.
do feel in this stage, the percentages are ticking up. And maybe it's because what you said,
Like
people are
age and
waiting
stage. Yeah.
because of the lifestyle weren't like the life age. Like if people were waiting for the kids to get out of school, they're getting out of school. And so all of a
Yeah.
sudden, tick, 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 tick. Like it's
And
anyway.
women who are more financially independent and can do that, right? Versus maybe the generation before our
Yes.
Absolutely.
mothers, grandmothers. I think that's just, which I mean, we have this conversation. This is for another podcast as to what marriages are going to look like for the younger generation. I bet they'll, all of what you were saying, Christine, of what we need to consider going into now new relationships, like it's just going to be set up in a much different way. So it's just
I think it'll
curious.
be
Yeah,
more calm.
because
Mhm.
women are our roles, particularly in the workforce, have evolved
Yeah,
exponentially in the last like
100%.
even 10 years, 20 years. So
Yeah.
I think what we what we view in a marriage, I think it's already changed.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
think
something
it will
recently.
continue to
Yeah.
change.
It
I
Yeah.
said
agree.
we're in the first time in human history where women no longer look to marriage, like need marriage for
Yeah.
financial stability or support or independence.
Yeah.
Therefore, they're more single women than ever before
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're looking for an emotionally open partner to
Yeah.
go through life. They don't
Yeah.
need him for
Yeah.
his financial
No,
support.
I women need partnerships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Women need partnerships, and it has to be across the board. The partnership can't just be in one area. It really needs to be in all areas,
Yeah.
Holistic.
particularly professional
Yeah.
women who are working outside of the home, the work women who choose to work inside the home. I respect it. It's so important. It's valuable. It has
Yeah.
value. But I think women who are working outside of the home and they have the constraints and the guidelines and the time pressures of that world need a partner at home.
Yeah.
It can't You can't do both at 100%.
No, you cannot.
It's not
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we're more aware of that.
Yeah.
We're calling that bull, as we talked about.
Yeah,
That was given to
exactly.
us before, for sure. Christine, this was amazing.
Yeah.
So I think everyone's going to, this will be our top podcast because there's such good information. We really
Yeah.
appreciate the time.
I'm
Thanks for
glad you
having
took your
me.
left turn. I'm glad you took the left turn.
Me
That's a
too.
whole other thing,
Yeah,
is
Yeah.
like
absolutely.
celebrating, doing your thing
Strong
your
women.
way and developing your own practice
Love
in
it.
a way that can help people. So good
Love
for
it.
you.
Thank you. You too.
Good for you.
Both
Thanks.
of you as
Thanks.
well. Amazing.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Hang up now. Thank
Okay.
you.
So we're
Bye.
gonna stop.
Bye.
Bye.